How's it going, everybody? This is Rock617 here with a submission for a speedrun that's very near and dear to my heart, this being Abobo's Big Adventure. It's a Flash game released on Newgrounds.com back in 2012 that is essentially just one big NES love letter. People who are familiar with the game know that it goes to great lengths to incorporate just about everything that it can from a very, very large number of NES games into 9 tightly packed levels, one of which we don't even play in the speedrun, which I always thought was really cool. So let's go ahead and get it started. This is actually my PB we'll be analyzing today. Turn the volume up a little bit.
I don't have any problem with the title screen. I just don't
So for the first level, we've got Abobo playing his way through Double Dragon.
sounds not very good.
Couple mechanics to discuss in this. First of all, we have the rage meter, which is extremely important.
Also much louder than
For our first trick, we need to make it to our first boss with full rage. Take that health up there, which is actually kind of tough. To manipulate that, what we want to do is we want to maneuver these kung fu enemies over to the door and group them together for hits. That way we build more meter. For some reason, if you hit multiple enemies at once, it builds a lot more meter than it would if you just hit one then another. So we're going to let DK spawn here, unleash our super. Just requires pressing both buttons.
on that super. If you
Drop down these boulders. You have to wait until DK falls to the ground in order to be able to launch the super, or else it soft locks the game. So that's thing number one to be somewhat worried about. But it's an easy thing to get around. The old DK Jr. there. Here's where the level becomes kind of bizarre. I was, in regards to the soft lock thing before, it's actually very, very easy to not soft lock there. It's a silly thing. It's Flash. Won't be an issue. For this case, we have this barrel, and we can only use it a certain number of times. We get 11 tosses with it across both us as well as enemies, because some enemies can pick it up and use it too. By this point, we've used it 5 times. We're going to toss that way, knock both those guys down, rebound it for another 2 hits. And the reason we need to use it that many times is because we have another boss here, that old Beardsy. We're going to throw it at him, go scoop it, have him hit us. It's ideal for him to not hit us, because when we get tagged like that, we lose rage meter. But the barrel landed right next to him, and we took a hit. But he ends up killing himself in that regard. Get some more health. Gonna pick up the bomb, take out these 2 guys. The guy in green is the much more important one to take out. He can counterattack you and drain a lot of time, whereas Naven doesn't really cause too many problems. So our first boss, we have old Shooter Gavin. Don't think that was his name originally in Double Dragon, but he's pretty random. You essentially just have to walk up and combo him, but his movement when he rolls across the ground, when he gets up, is just, he gets to basically go wherever the heck he wants. Gonna unleash super here. We do this when he's rolling because that actually is going to hit him. Normally he's invincible while rolling, but being able to use super means we just actually get to tag him instead. That'll finish off our first boss. Billy comes in for the save. Then we drop down the hole onto our second level.
This is one stage that definitely needs to get better.
Pretty tough level. It's an underwater stage a la Super Mario Brothers. Abobo suddenly grows a Yoshi tongue somehow. The stage is essentially just a boss rush. We have 4 bosses to fight. 5 technically, because one leads into another. What we're doing here is we're absorbing projectiles that we can use through damage boost to be able to take down the fish. Next we're going to take this quick shield. Just a minor bit of menuing there. The shield is going to help us out a lot with the damage boost that we're going to be taking through this segment. Really didn't want to get hit there. That was an unfortunate early turn. Seaweed's kind of hard to get around, but it doesn't lose too much time if you get tagged. There's a reason we had the shield, you see. On to Bubble Man. Probably the hardest of the 3 bosses that we had to fight before the big one. Just because his bubbles travel at just such awkward angles, so maintaining control of what you're doing can be a real chore sometimes. Move on with this fish to our last boss before the big boss. Here we have Karnov. Somehow grew mermaid legs. Pretty easy. He has the same pattern the entire time, and you have a couple of other pieces of ammunition before you even get to him, that being the blooper, as well as the cheap Cheetos before that. So under our first set of bosses, we're going to have the master himself, that being Jaws. He only takes 3 hits, much like the previous. You can get 2 hits before he even despawns the first time. His return cycle is random, but I've seen it mostly pop up there. Then now we have the Big Daddy. We're going to take this projectile that we stole onto the boss. You got to be really, really careful to not spawn your super here. I actually missed that shot, which was unfortunate, but the super's going to do a lot of damage to him.
But as far as me playing it,
Unfortunately, the falling Tetris pieces are actually not items that we can use, which I find kind of baffling. They're just hitboxes. The only things we can use for ammunition at this point are the fish corpses that are floating through the water. One more. Take him down.
very good stage, actually.
Definitely the best I've ever done that stage in particular, but
I know.
I could even clean up some of those boss fights for an even better time. Move us on to our third stage.
So that was
Easily the most straightforward stage in the game. This is based on an NES fighting game called Urban Champion. Really fun, short level.
savings here, but I think I can
Incredibly one-sided fight we have here too, I would think.
say it should probably practice.
Move on up to this guy. It's actually pretty simple. You only have to hit him 3 times to get him to the side. This was not one of my better attempts on this stage. For the last 2 cycles, it took me 4 hits.
It's just not a
It's kind of tricky to do correctly. It's certainly not difficult, but it can be easy to mess up at times. If you swing too early, then that can cause another cycle to be forced because he may not be knocked back as far as he's supposed to be.
probably gonna lose some time here.
That being one of 2 legit speed strats in this stage. The other is how we choose. Oh yeah, this game has medals too. It's how we choose to finish him off. We're going to do it in the kindest way possible. We're going to throw in some sunglasses, sign him an autograph, send that his way. It actually requires a button combination to do the friendship. The other option is not the same, but it does take longer. So it's faster to just do the full combination and then the friendship rather than getting the alternative. Goofing today. So anyway, on to our next stage. This is actually my favorite stage in the run. It's based on The Legend of Zelda. Amazing stage where you get all kinds of cool stuff to happen. Take out these water drops. There was one glaring mistake in this stage that I'll go over here shortly. The most important thing we can do is before we reach the room with the fish, we don't want to take any hits because A, we want to maintain our meter, and B, we kind of just want to keep our health. And I believe here, I actually messed that up. For the first few rooms, standard Zelda affair, where we have to kill every enemy in the room in order to be able to move on to the next. And I believe here is where, right there is where I took my hit. So we're not going to have full meter going to the next room, and I'll explain what that would get us if I had. So for this room, we have 2 fish that we have to fight. If we had meter and they spawn separate from each other like they did there, we could just use the super and kill them both. Sometimes, since it's completely random, sometimes what'll happen is it doesn't even matter if you have meter or not, because what you can do is if they spawn right next to each other, you can just kill them with a sword all at once. That doesn't happen that often. It's incredibly good luck if you do, but if you are able to get it, it's a great backup strat in the event that you take a hit. And if you don't end up taking a hit and still get it, then you can still do it, because the super actually does take a lot of time, and you don't want to necessarily do it if you got 2 fish that are side by side. So we've got the ladder now. That's going to enable for easier passage across water. For that was just a shortcut, but it does get us across there. Through here, we're actually going to be taking a lot of damage boosts, and there's a reason for that. We're actually working our way up to a death warp that we're going to have here in the middle of the stage. Through here we have the actual boss of the stage, and Dig Dug. He's pretty awful. You don't want to let him touch you. If he touches you, he grabs you, and he renders you unable to leave the room for 15 seconds. And if you get touched while you're in that state, you're actually just dead. So avoiding him at all costs is huge. Work our way back out of this room now that we have the key. Unfortunately, if we do take a hit, we actually can't exit the room. So enemy movement here is very, very important. If you walk into an enemy while you're trying to walk out of the room, stuff like that can happen. We're going to work our way back to the Shy Guy maze, take some more damage. I believe I ended up killing the one at the end of the hall because I wasn't quite sure where my health was going to be at going into the room with the Death Warp. But I believe I ended up getting pretty lucky there. The key will open us up to this door, into this room of Octoroks. We're going to place the ladder right here on the lava, and then an Octorok is going to damage boost us across the pathway down to this room to get the key, and then we're going to have these enemies kill us to warp us back to the main hallway instead of having to go all the way back around. Pretty cool little death warp, I think. Takes a pretty decent amount of time over going the other way. So through here, we're going to maintain full health, kill those Octoroks. This room's really dangerous. If you get hit, you lose the ability to shoot a projectile from the sword, which really matters for the manhandler here. We're going to aggro him here. Move on down the stairs. It's going to allow us to get a solid weapon upgrade here in the meat. Here, we're not taking damage boost. It also bumps our health up, as you can see. Clip off the ladder, look pretty nice. From here, we're not intentionally taking damage. We're going to kill anything if it gets in our way. Shy Guy gave us a bad movement pattern there, so we have to kill him, unfortunately. This room's a little bit complicated. These little drops can give us some problems. And then this room can also be a bit of a tease. If the ghosts move right like he did there, then that's pretty bad luck. I actually should have just gone down and straight left there, but I think what I ended up doing instead worked out for the best. Just completely ignore these fish. Move on down here. Sorry, merman. Move past these ghosts. Up to the left. Quick room here where we just need to get a key item. Corbies are actually pretty horrible here. I know they're called flurries, but shoutouts to Corbies. We all prefer Corbies. Take those guys out and move out. I tend to want to try to hit anything that gets in my way here, but unfortunately ghosts take 2 hits. Here with the ladder, we're going to move around the dragon and on to our boss stage, which is going to be the old man. So there's a little bit of RNG to the first phase. He summons 3 enemies to start the fight, and those enemies are completely random. He can summon some easier ones. Like those spiders are pretty easy. The skeletons aren't too bad. Ghosts are pretty awful. Those aren't enemies that you want to see. But we took care of them in short order, and you have to destroy all the scepters in the room. They only take 2 hits apiece, though. These orbs that are chasing you turn you into a snail, and you don't want that. Once he's done with his little staff trick, we're going to move up next to him and keep hitting him. He's going to launch the red candle at us, but if we stay here and don't move, then he can't hit us at all. So for our last hit, I'm going to move right in front of him. Spawn his second phase where he clones himself, and then immediately trigger super, which ends up killing 2 of the clones right away, and then we're going to finish him off from there, which allows him to move on to his last phase. Easily the most random phase that he has. Most of the time he's just going to walk around like this where he can't do damage to us. If he goes into the stomp phase, then he can actually send out shockwaves that are going to do damage to us. We're keeping meter in this case until he tries to go for another shockwave, because the reason we do that is when he's invincible like that, if we super, he can actually still take damage. So in that form, he's much like with the first stage boss during a roll, he's invincible to anything except for super. So we got some great luck there. Let me explain why that's such good luck. When he goes into stomps, he can do essentially as many stomps as he wants, but I got some great luck there in that he only did 1 stomp at a time. I've seen him do as many as 4 to 5 stomps in a row, and there's no break for actually trying to hit him. He doesn't ever wear off his invincibility during those time periods. You just kind of have to keep waiting him out, hoping for the best. So we rescue Zelda. We obtain the Pie Force, which apparently is not what it was. I don't know how anybody could possibly get that confused. It looks like pie to me. Bobo gets really mad at Zelda, tells her he's not having it. And to give a little bit of backstory about the storyline of this game, Abobo is off to rescue his son, who's been kidnapped by the heroes of the NES world. World of NES, I think Doc Brown calls it. Doc Lewis. How did I get that wrong? Oops. So anyway, here we have Abobo finding his son in the basement. I didn't even know Kung Fu and Legend of Zelda took place in the same universe, but I guess I know better now. After this endearing cutscene, we find out that it actually was, in fact, not Abobo's son. Unfortunately, these cutscenes are not skippable. They're very entertaining and they're great for donation time at times, but sometimes they're just really fun to watch because they're so silly and outlandish. And I'm going to go ahead and move on into what would be our next stage. To give a little bit of backstory on this next stage, this is actually the one we're going to skip. It's based on Balloon Fight, and it's actually a very fun stage if you're playing casually, but it has an in-game menu that allows you to just access it by pressing 1 on the keyboard, and then it just allows you to skip the stage. Like, it actually gives you the command to skip the stage. The programmers intended to have it. I'm not sure why they decided to include that, but all the better for the speed run. It's a really fun stage, but for speed, it's really suboptimal because it's something like a 9-minute auto scroller. Like we don't want anything to do with that, so we're just gonna skip that right ahead onto our pro wrestling stage where we finally get to confront the Amazon. Basically, just a big bout of RNG here. Our goal is we want to get him outside. If he gets us out there first, that's fine. He'll roll his way out, and then we will. Sorry, I have the notification still on. That off. Sorry about that. So anyway, our goal here is we have to build meter. We can build meter one of two ways. One, we can keep hitting him, which is our first goal. The other way to build meter is if we drain all of Amazon's energy, our meter goes to max right away. And the best way to build meter quickly is to just keep whipping into the barricade like this. So that's what we're going to keep mashing on. Let's hope for the best. Amazon will get reversals a lot of the time. As long as he doesn't do the tongue grab, things are usually fine because nothing else drains that much time. The suplex, the headbutt, things like that, those don't really take that much time. So we got pretty lucky. Going to take him right up and into the ring for our sequence leading into the next stage, which is going to be this really long cutscene. I personally think this is just a great inclusion to the game. I think it's amazing that they took the time to animate all this. And it's really good for hype mode. Like, I think watching this on a big marathon would just be just memes galore and great amounts of hysteria. It would be awesome. Really don't have any control here. It's purely just for entertainment value. Go into a little bit of discussion of what got me to this game. One of my teammates for RGL TV, Afada Cthulhu, actually got me wanting to play this game when I saw him do a run of it on our team stream one night. And I recall later learning it for the 12-hour challenge this past August. And I wanted to adhere to the theme of the challenge, which I always tend to want to do. The theme was to run a game that's never been in a GDQ. And lo and behold, here we have it. It also became something of a meme for me because after running Double Dragon at SGDQ 2018, people kept asking me what my next Double Dragon game was going to be, and it ended up being this. So anyway, after our compadres do it to it, we're going to finish off Amazon with our big skyrocket. Love the size difference all of a sudden. Back in the ring, Abobo and Amazon were pretty close to the same size, but now Abobo just looks like he's lifting him like he's a child. Gonna come right back to the earth to the song from Werewolf. Right into the dome, which now has this giant gaping hole in it. And suddenly no more audience.
Love the use of the TMNT2 boss kill sound effect.
Pretty cool visual effect. I like it.
I think that's what that was from.
Amazon meets a grisly end.
Quite the grisly end there.
Love the quote there. Winner is you is just such a classic. Moving on to our next stage, here we have Mega Mobobo,
Strap our helmet on.
also known as Mega Bobo. We're going to be playing through Quickman stage
Buster, I guess.
with a myriad of different enemies. Move right past this Slinky. So there's two different strats you can do in this stage. The one I'm going to go for is the one that's a lot safer. The less safe strat only saves about, I want to say it's like 2 to 3 seconds or so. The reason it's unsafe is because you're actually going to reach the boss with a very low amount of health, so you essentially have to play the boss fight perfectly. I prefer to play with full health. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take damage, not necessarily everywhere I can, but I want to take a decent amount of damage before I reach the final room. Not hard to do because there's a ton of enemies you have to work your way through here. Under our laser section, everybody knows how this goes. There's really nothing different about it except we don't have time stopper. We just have to go, go, go. In fact, you don't have any sub-weapons here. All you have is the Abobo Buster. This is the one that's clipped me in the past. Make sure you do not land on those platforms. You will die immediately. So down this way, here's where all the damage comes in. We're going to have our little Blaster Master here finish this off. So ordinarily in that room, past that enemy, there would be a ton of enemies in this screen. We can listen here. Not sure if anybody heard that, but you can still hear the enemies in this room if you death warp back to it, but the enemies are all gone, so therefore you're not taking more damage. You just get a easy breezy stroll to the boss with a full head of health. Here we have the Dark Mega Bobo, also known as Rabobobo. He starts the fight off by throwing Dr. Wily at us, which I think is an incredible touch. First fight's pretty standard, or first phase, I should say. He's going to jump, we're going to super. Essentially, all I have to do is just dodge his attacks and then hit him. There's not really that complicated. Unleash super if you get it, because it does a lot of damage. And he also can't avoid it. Okay, that'll finish off the first phase. Second phase is quite a bit more complicated. This is where things are going to get a lot more random, and it's where the RNG really starts to matter. At the start of the fight, he's completely invincible. He's going to go into puddle form, and you just can't touch him. From here, no matter what attack he does, he has 3 of them. This being the most common one. Always just shoot him in the head. Super is actually great to have here because when he goes into puddle form, he's invincible to anything except super. So super there is really clutch. Going to continue to do damage to him here. This is another fairly common attack. His head just detaches from his body, and we're just going to keep shooting him. Dodging shots as need be. There's nothing random about the shot intervals. It was unfortunate I wasn't able to get that last hit of damage on him, but I managed to stop him right when he came back. That'll finish off the fight from there.
Good stage.
That fight's certainly, when you're doing RTA runs, it's certainly one of the scariest, just because sometimes in Phase 2, he can just decide to just go into puddle form over and over and over, which is the third form that I actually didn't get to because he didn't do it in that fight. Of course, I got incredibly lucky. If he goes into puddle form, he just renders himself completely invincible as he does before. He also shoots these spikes to the top that fall down on you, and the spikes are one-hit kills. They're really easy to avoid, but it's essentially still a troll pattern because the whole time he's doing this, he can't be hit by anything but super, so it's pretty awful.
But having a good contra stage is incredibly hard, especially for part 2.
Going to suit on up for our next to last stage. In fact, it's 2 stages, I should mention. Going to be for Contra. By far the hardest segment of the game. Can't lose. There really isn't too much time to lose if we don't get it. There are still strats that we can utilize to finish it off, but there are certain things that needed to go right if we're hoping to maintain a good time.
Yeah, this stage is rough.
Major things about Contra to be different. First of all, because this runs on flash and not NES memory, there's no lag, and mashing is really good because you can't have a finite number of shots on screen at a time like you can in original Contra because, the NES sometimes just can't handle it. Enemies, especially these zombies, also have completely random patterns. Sometimes they can just walk right up on you. There's not a lot you can do. There was actually a jump I was trying to land there. If you jump between where that turret lands, you actually get a really good death abuse there, which we're actually going to be utilizing a lot here. There's no real faster route simply because there's just too many hitboxes on screen at a given time. Didn't anticipate dying there. But the real goal is we want to get spread here, and then we just want to be able to keep it. We're going to move on to our first boss. Much like an original Contra, spread is absolutely where you want to be here. It does so much damage. It shoots out a lot of hitboxes all at once. There's literally no downside to having spread. You always want to have spread, and you want to be able to keep it. Part that makes that difficult is the fact that there are only, I think, 2 ways to obtain spread throughout the entire segment of this stage, which one in this stage, one in the next stage. So for the top there, we want to make sure we have enough rage to be able to launch an airstrike. We do that in response to him shooting that rocket punch because not only does that render us invincible to where the rocket punch doesn't hit us, but it also does a lot of damage back to Kirby. Or Krangby, I guess I call him in this case. We have 3 segments with which to destroy. We have the head, then we have the arm, and then we have Kirby himself. Kirby himself being the easiest in terms of attack patterns, just shoot and duck the shrimp that he absorbs. Pretty simple stuff when you can maintain that. Once we take him down, Kirby's going to float away. We're going to go right after him because we're not done yet. You may also notice we're at 0 lives. Wouldn't worry about that. Here we're going to work our way up the waterfall. The first little bit, we're going to have spread to use across a swath of enemies. But then once we get right to here, past Higgins, we're actually going to have to start doing some more death abuse, simply because, as mentioned before, there's just too many enemies that come through here. Nice little nod here. You got to actually enter the Contra code and get all your lives back. Thought that was really clever, and it'd be good for a pop from the crowd. As before, lots of nonsense here. Jetpack ninjas, zombies, slow-moving troll bullets. Really didn't want that zombie to fall on me there, but sometimes you get unlucky. Terra drops are pretty awful, too. Dropping all the popos on you. So here's our second spread. We're going to go ahead and nab it. From here, I tend to play it a little bit safe, simply because keeping spread is just so important. I take out these turrets with a crouch shot. Play it a little bit safe, because these troll bullets are really going to get in our way. I don't believe there's been any optimized jump movement through here. Essentially what you're hoping to do is try to get past Ryu Hayabusa onto that platform for the first cycle. It's a really, really tight jump from what I've seen, but it's also an incredibly dangerous one. One I'll likely end up practicing more in the future, even though practice in this game is incredibly difficult because you can't do save state practice on it. You can do level practice, but that starts all the way back at the beginning of Contra. So here we have our second boss, and we have spread intact, which is very, very good because that's going to allow us to be able to two-cycle him, whereas without spread, you're looking at something like as few as 3, generally as many as 4 cycles. To start off, we're just going to unleash damage on him. We're going to keep super, because as before, we can use super when Kirby gets iframes. As soon as he floats away like that, that's when we trigger super. And call in the airstrike. Sorry if it seems weird that I'm calling it super. I used to play a lot of fighting games, so I'm used to, like, when you spin meter, that's just referred to as a super move. Drops him in his iframes there. As soon as he comes back, we're going to unleash some more spread shots. He's going to try to go for a fireball pattern on us, but we've got enough damage to be able to finish him off from here, and that's going to close it out. Kirby does his little ending cutscene, regurgitates all these villains that you've seen from many games across the NES library. Some heroes in there, too. I believe I saw Hagar in there from Mighty Final Fight. And one of the guys from Bad Dudes. There's one last captive left. Here we have old Doc from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! He's going to give us the last little bit of story that's going to be necessary to complete our quest. So according to Doc, turns out it was Little Mac that did it all along. Goes all crazy, thinks he can take down everybody. You know how it goes. Just how he operates. So for our last stage, I will be perfectly honest. It's a really easy stage, but in this particular run, I actually messed up the first segment of the fight, and unfortunately it ended up costing me a world record by about half a second, because I lost 20 seconds when I was 35 ahead when I need to be 15 ahead. Just for this. So we'll just, I love this cutscene, by the way. We'll go ahead and ignore the first segment and move directly onto the second segment as if it was the first segment to describe what's going to happen. So get our sodium out. We'll have a good rest of the run. I love the look of fear on Doc's face. It's so strong. Great, isn't it? Just staring right at Abobo. It's like, well, this could go bad. Mash our way through this. Alright, here goes. 9,999 wins and 0 losses. You think he'd be a favorite. What's up, Vertigon? So anyway, on to this fight. The goal is dodge the first punch. And I didn't dodge the first punch. You can hear my exasperation there. Turns out what I should have done was just let him, not press buttons and let him go for the second punch, dodge that, and then proceed from there. Found that out later. But here we are now. We're going to dodge the punch this time, hit him, go for some uppercuts. This is a combo. He actually can't get out of this. But then we're going to have him go for one again. The whole time we're doing this, we're building up meter, which we're going to need for the second phase. First phase, as you saw there, is just like punch out, but the opposite, because you're on that side. For the second phase, we actually get to punch him right away and go into our combo. And then we're going to dodge another punch from him. And here's where a cool glitch comes in. Once we hit the last uppercut, as soon as the knockdown animation initiates, we mash our super, which performs a random swath of knockdown punches from one of the Punch-Out characters. In that case, it was Piston Honda. Ordinarily, what Mac would do there is he would go into a transformation where he turns into Big Mac, which takes a lot of time. But because we did the glitch where we supered out, it actually allowed us to skip all that. So that moves us on to our last scene where we get to do super ourselves, and that's going to be time. It's time on the double button press, but we've seen what we needed to see. Going to go ahead and pause it there. Anyway, so, as is, that's Abobo's Big Adventure. Amazing game. Much like some other games I've run in the past, it's very, very cool being what I call multi-genre. Because, I mean, you get to do so much in this game. There's a lot of different cool strats to learn. Some of which are native to their original games. Others are completely new. But I think the game compressed itself into one great package. And I think it would be really cool to see on the big stage. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed checking out my PB there. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off from this recording. So this is El Rock. Thank you so much for watching.